Well, just to be clear, the tour was an aerial assessment. So we looked at Kingston and St. Andrew, we looked at St. Catherine, Clarendon, and we toured several constituencies in St. Elizabeth, mostly along the coast. So we flew in a JDF helicopter and we essentially hugged the coast of the country coming around. And then we landed in Treasure Beach, in the Treasure Beach area. So I was able to get a very broad perspective of the damage. So we had some amount of coastal impact based upon the wave actions and storm surges, but not to the point where we would say it was significant. So we've had damage, but I wouldn't say to the coastal infrastructure it was significant. We saw some flooding, but it was expected, flooding in low-lying areas. We saw several roofs lifted. And at one point, I was actually counting the number of roofs. And in an area in Treasure Beach, in Great Bay, we counted between Great Bay and Treasure Beach and another area, about 100 roofs lifted. So my assessment from the air is that we had um, extensive damage in the parish of St. Elizabeth, in particularly in areas close to the coast. On the ground, I got another dimension, which would be the fallen trees, the light poles, the damage to shops, and the potential economic fallout as a result of this, and the human suffering. Pregnant mother, old person, elderly person. So the damage, therefore, in my assessment, is that it was extensive, but I wouldn't put it at the highest level of severity. The challenge, based upon the completion of the tour, which I'm seeing, getting a better understanding of it, will be the restoration of electricity, because so many poles have been damaged, and that is going to require extensive teams of linemen to come in. I'm not certain what our capacity is in that regard. We will have to try and mobilize even overseas to do that, but we're going to put together all our efforts to ensure that we can return electricity in the quickest possible time. And it's very important that that be done, because that could be the greatest danger. All right, so we don't want to have a break in the public utilities, because that can foment public disorder. So we will be working very hard to have that repaired. I am yet to receive the assessment from ODPEM. I know they have completed it, but because of connectivity challenges where we are, I haven't had a chance to actually lay eyes on it. But when I get back into Kingston, I'll have a review. I'm not certain if Minister Mackenzie has already briefed the nation on it. He would have line responsibilities for that. But just to be clear, we are out of the disaster preparation phase, and we are now in the disaster response phase. And this is the first phase of the response, which is the assessment. We want to wrap up the assessment very quickly, and then that assessment will help us to curate a response. So we begin to see what are the needs, and there will be several needs. But with limited resources, you have to set priorities. And so the cabinet will determine what are the priorities. And then we will have to find the most effective and efficient way of getting the benefits to the people, in the hands of the people. I want to use the opportunity to say this. In the past, there has been a less than structured way in the delivery of emergency relief. And that has led to criticisms about the transparency, even accusations of political bias in the dispensation and distribution of relief to needy citizens. It would be a real travesty if such criticisms were made, having regard to our track record in COVID, where we distributed the largest care package in the history of Jamaica, and there has not even been one complaint about any form of political bias. So I want to assure Jamaica that whatever we do, there must be systems of accountability and transparency. There is a culture that is deeply embedded in some of our people where there is the expectation that public resources should just be given and there shouldn't be any system and process of accountability. Now, I understand that we are in an emergency, but an emergency does not suspend the need for accountability and transparency. So, even in an emergency situation, there will be a process. And I'm saying this for the benefit of the members of parliament, of the technical officers in the ministry, and for the beneficiaries themselves who will be eagerly awaiting the public benefit. We don't intend to be called up in parliament by the specified authorities to say that funds were not spent in accordance with the law. Then we are accused of being corrupt, with no mention that there was an emergency. And so we don't intend to go down that road. So there will be a process for any benefit, no matter how small it is, that will be given in a relief package, which means that anyone receiving a benefit must put their signature down for it. There must be a valid ID for it or somebody to vouch for the identity of the person. So whatever the government allocates, we must be able to trace every cent to the beneficiary. It mustn't end up in anyone else's pocket who was not the intended beneficiary. Now, these things may add layers to the process and it may take time, but it is absolutely important for the stability and strengthening of our democracy and accountability that this be done. And so I just want to put that out there for everyone who may be expecting a free for all. There will be no free for all in the dispensation and distribution of public resources in the relief process.
Finally, PM, did preparations held up with the aftermath and the feedback you've gotten here in St. Elizabeth among the other parishes? Did the nation's preparation held up against burial?
I'm giving you three levels of assessment. I'm giving you the level of assessment that I am aware of, meaning that I am directly involved in the preparation of the cabinet, the preparation of the senior leadership, the policy direction. I'm certain that it worked and worked very well. At the level of me going around and meeting the actual implementers and meeting the people, the sense I get is that it generally held up and performed. The real test, however, is when we do the post preparation review, when we go through with ADPEM and see what were the weaknesses, what didn't work, which is a more objective and scientific way. So I can say I'm certain of what I did and the impact it has. And I am fairly certain of the feedback I've gotten, which is could be very subjective and it's not general enough. I have not gone all over. But from wherever I've gone, I've gotten good feedback. And now we await the objective analysis, and then that will tell us where there are weaknesses. My sense is that generally our system works. And I can make that statement even without the objective analysis being done, that Jamaica has never been this ready. And I don't mean politically, I mean, we have built within government lines of effort that stand up even when there is no disaster, that are built and institutional in the way they work, from legislation to the direction of leadership, from the allocation of resources, from the structuring of our fiscal and financial affairs. All of it has worked according to what we intended it to.